Prologue, the Blood Moon's daughter. All crowns are borrowed. The moon's shadow collects its due. Scrawled in ash on the walls of the eclipse spire. Morrigan's first memory was of drowning. Not in water, but in sight. She was 4 years old when the blood moon first split her skull. It came uninvited, a crimson tide flooding her mind, showing her the marsh wolves that would kill her mother at dawn. She screamed warnings in a tongue no one understood, her small fingers clawing at the air as if to shred the vision. By sunrise, her mother's body lay draped over the bog stones, throat torn open, eyes milky with prophecy. The Cronehood of the Sanguine Mire took Morrigan that day, their bone chimes singing a dirge. The moon marked you, their leader hissed, tracing the crescent-shaped birthmark beneath Morrigan's right eye. It hungers for kings. They taught her to read the world's whispers, how a wilting rose foretells a dynasty's collapse, how a three-legged crow heralds a bastard's rise. But the blood moon's visions were not gentle lessons, they were seizures of fate. At 12, she saw the Usurper-King of Vaelthyr ascending his throne, his hands gloved in her future son's blood. At 16, she watched her own body split open on a birthing bed, a child with starless eyes clawing free. The Cronehood named her Morrigan, after the war crow goddess. They did not know how right they were. Chapter 1, The Rotting Oak. Vaelthyr's royal oak was dying. Its roots, once thick as cathedral pillars, now oozed black sap. The court alchemists blamed beetles. The peasants whispered of curses. Morrigan, disguised as a hedge witch selling moonthorn remedies, pressed her palm to the tree's bark and knew. The king is the rot, she murmured to the ravens nesting in her hair. King Edric III, the usurper's grandson, had stolen his throne by smothering his infant niece in her crib. The oak's decay mirrored his soul, a truth only Morrigan could weaponize. She let the king's guards catch her stealing mandrake from the palace gardens. When dragged before Edric, she met his gaze and let the blood moon flood her eyes. Your line ends in fire, she lied. Unless a purer seed is sown. Edric, who feared nothing but irrelevance, bit the hook. He ordered her confined to the moon tower, a prison she'd seen in a vision years before. Its stones were carved with wards meant to stifle magic. They did not stifle her. Chapter 2, The Puppet King. Courting a tyrant is a dance of venom and velvet. Morrigan wore Edric's obsession like a cloak. She fed him tinctures of nightshade and narcissus, brewed to amplify paranoia and lust. He dismissed his counselors, burned treaties, and spent hours in her tower, slurping prophecies from her lips like wine. The northern lords plot against you, she whispered, though the vision had shown her only a merchant's adultery. Your queen's womb is barren, she sighed, though the true threat was the child already quickening in her own. When Edric tore the crown from his queen's head, Morrigan smiled. When he crawled into her bed, she opened her arms and her legs, her mind fixed on the vision, a boy with the usurper's chin and her own crescent-marked eyes, lifting a crown from a corpse's skull. But the child, when it came, was not what she'd bargained for. Chapter 3, The Stillborn Prophecy. The birthing chamber reeked of iron and failure. Morrigan's body locked around the pain, her visions fragmenting. The blood moon showed her a son, her son, riding a warhorse through Vaelthyr's gates, the usurper's head on his spear. But the midwives' faces told another story. It's a girl, one stammered. The infant did not cry. Her eyes were twin voids, pupils devoured by the same darkness that lived in Morrigan's visions. When Morrigan touched her, the blood moon erupted behind her ribs, a vision not of the future, but the past. The Usurper-King, years younger, standing over a crib. Not his niece's, but Morrigan's. A knife in his hand. Her mother screams. You, Morrigan choked, understanding too late. The usurper hadn't just stolen a throne, he'd stolen her. She was no peasant prophet. She was the last true blood of Vaelthyr's royal line. The child died at dawn, taking the moon's favor with her. Chapter 4, The Raven's Bargain. Morrigan fled into the wolfswood, her milk-stained robes attracting carrion birds. The Cronehood found her at the eclipse spire, the ancient altar where her umbilical cord had been buried. The moon demands balance, they croaked. A life for a life. a daughter for a daughter. They offered her the Raven Pact, a ritual to resurrect the child as something else. But the price would be her prophetic sight, the very thing that had defined her. Morrigan slid her palm over the altar. "Take it. Take everything." The child awoke screaming. Her eyes now burned crimson. Her first word was king. Chapter 5, The Crown of Shattered Visions. Vaelthyr burned beautifully. Morrigan's daughter, Lysara, she named her, was no longer human. The Raven Pact had made her a vessel, her skin etched with glyphs only Morrigan could read, her laughter summoning storms. Together, they marched on the capital, an army of disillusioned peasants and starved wolves at their heels. The Usurper-King met them at the gates, his face a mirror of Morrigan's visions. "You," he spat, recognizing her at last. Lysara ended him with a touch. His crown melted like wax, reforging in her small hands. But as Morrigan knelt to claim victory, the blood moon struck its final blow, a vision of Lysara, grown and terrible, standing over her corpse. "All crowns are borrowed," her daughter recited, the crown's thorns piercing her brow. "And the moon collects its due." Morrigan's scream was lost in the crowd's roar. Chapter 6, The Hollow Throne. Lysara's coronation was a funeral in reverse. The crown of Vaelthyr, reforged from the usurper's melted diadem, sat too large on the child's brow, its jagged edges drawing thin lines of blood that dripped like rubies onto her cheeks. The court cheered, not for the girl queen, but for the spectacle, the butchered usurper's body strung from the gates, his organs plucked out by ravens. Morrigan stood at the foot of the throne, her prophetic sight gone, replaced by a gnawing emptiness. She had expected Lysara to be a weapon. Not this, a hollow thing with a voice like wine through dead branches, decreeing executions with the casual cruelty of a child snapping insect wings. "Mother," Lysara whispered that night, her fingers tracing the grooves of Morrigan's stolen visions in the air. "The moon is hungry again." And Morrigan, for the first time, felt fear. Chapter 7, The God and the Girl. The blood moon had not abandoned Lysara, it colonized her. The girl queen no longer slept. She stood at her tower window, whispering to the night in a language that made the stones bleed. Her first edict was the Eclipse Edifice, a spire of blackened bone rising in the palace square, built from the skeletons of those who'd displeased the moon's gaze. Morrigan tried to control her, to mold her into the instrument of vengeance she had envisioned. But Lysara was no longer hers. "You gave me to the crows," Lysara murmured, stroking the throat of a condemned knight. "Now I belong to the dark." When the Cronehood came to reclaim their creation, Lysara greeted them with a smile, and fed them to her spire. Chapter 8, The Severing. Morrigan's breaking point came at the Feast of Waning Shadows. Lysara, now 12 and terrible, placed a goblet before her mother, filled not with wine, but with the still-beating heart of the last crone. "A gift," she said. "For the woman who made me a god." That night, Morrigan crept into the Eclipse Edifice with a knife of cold iron. She would cut the Raven Pact from her daughter's flesh, even if it killed them both. But Lysara was waiting. "You taught me to read the future," the girl queen sighed, pressing Morrigan's blade to her own wrist. "But you never learned to change it." The blood moon roared to life above them. The spire screamed. Chapter 9, The Unmother. The world forgot Morrigan in pieces. First her name dissolved from the court records. Then her face faded from portraits. By the time she staggered into the wolfswood, even her reflection had abandoned her. The Raven Pact's price was absolute: to undo a god, one must cease to exist. Yet the moon, capricious as ever, left her one final vision. Lysara, grown into a woman of shadows and teeth, ruling eternally over a corpse kingdom. Her crown now fused to her skull, her laughter the sound of cracking ice. And beneath her throne, a single, rotting raven's feather. Morrigan's legacy. Chapter 10, The Crow's Return. Decades later, a witch with no memory tends a grave in the Sanguine Mire. The tombstone bears no name, only a crescent moon stained with old blood. The marsh folk say she whispers to the dead at night, though no one answers. When the blood moon rises, she does not look up. But somewhere, in a palace of bone and echoes, a queen with starless eyes pauses mid-sentence, as if hearing a voice only she remembers. Epilogue, the moon's due. All crowns are borrowed. The blood moon takes its tithe in flesh and futures. Morrigan's vengeance birthed a monster. Lysara's reign birthed a legend. And the world, as it always does, moved on, until the next prophet, the next king, the next blade. In the end, there is only the moon. Watching. Waiting. Hungry,